Picture this, you're on I-40 heading into Nashville. The left lane is completely empty, wide open, clear as far as you can see. And there's a semi-truck in front of you in the right lane doing 62 miles per hour. You wait, nothing, the truck doesn't move, you flash your lights, still nothing. You finally whip around it, give the driver a look, and as soon as you get home you pull out your phone and post the dash cam clip online. The comments take about 4 minutes to explode. These guys think they own the road. Move over buddy, the left lane is right there. Typical trucker, no situational awareness. The clip gets 200,000 views by morning. And every single one of those commenters, every single one is wrong about what they watched. That trucker wasn't being oblivious. They weren't being stubborn. They weren't disrespecting you or blocking you on purpose. They were doing the single most disciplined, most carefully calculated, most physics-correct thing it is possible to do on an American highway with 40 tons of freight behind them. And the fact that it looks like laziness from your dash cam angle is exactly the problem this video is going to fix. Because here's the truth that nobody in that comment section knows. The moment that truck moves into the left lane at highway speed, the risk to your life goes up. Not down, up. And by the time this video is done, you're going to understand exactly why, and you're going to drive differently because of it. Let's start with the number that should be on a billboard on every interstate in America, but isn't. At 65 miles per hour, a fully loaded 18-wheeler needs approximately 525 feet to come to a complete stop. That is almost 2 football fields. End zone to end zone plus the full length of the field again. Your car, a normal passenger sedan at the same speed, stops in about 316 feet. That's 1 football field. So when you're tailgating a semi on the interstate, probably closer than you should be, here's what that gap difference actually means. If something goes wrong, a blowout, a deer, a car braking hard 3 vehicles ahead, the truck driver sees it at the exact same moment you do. You have 316 feet to stop. They need 525 feet. And they have no way to create that extra 200 feet of stopping distance because you're right behind them and there are cars on both sides. Now add one more variable. Those numbers are for dry pavement. On wet roads, the kind you drive on every rainy afternoon in Georgia or every spring morning in Ohio, that stopping distance for the truck stretches past 600 feet. In winter conditions, we're talking about distances that would shock you if they appeared on your GPS screen as a number instead of as a concept. This is not a small engineering quirk. This is the foundational physical reality that every single rule, every law, every training manual, every insurance policy, and every federal regulation around heavy trucks on American highways is built on. Everything else in this video flows from those 2 numbers, 525 feet for the truck, 316 feet for you, and the gap between them is where crashes happen. The engineers who designed the interstate highway system in the 1950s and 60s understood this math cold. They were watching the fatality data come in from the early interstates, and they saw a pattern immediately. When trucks and cars mixed freely across all lanes, when speed differentials between vehicle classes collapsed into the same lane stream, the crash numbers climbed. The solution they wrote into federal guidelines was elegant and simple. Keep heavy vehicles in the right lane, at consistent speeds, separated from the faster passenger car flow in the left lanes. It was a physics equation written into asphalt, and it has been saving lives quietly ever since, even while millions of people film videos complaining about it. Here's the part of this that most American drivers have never been taught, and it's the part that matters most for your personal safety right now, today, on the next drive you take near a semi. A standard 53-foot trailer, the most common commercial truck on American highways, has 4 blind spots. Most drivers know about the one directly behind the trailer. Some know about the one right in front of the cab, but the ones that kill people are the ones on the sides, and they are much larger than you think. On the passenger side, the right side of the truck, the blind spot extends from the cab mirror all the way back to the end of the trailer, and it extends 2 full lanes wide. 2 lanes. If you're driving alongside a semi on the right side, anywhere from the front of the trailer to the back, you are completely invisible to the driver. The mirror geometry physically does not allow them to see you. You are not a blurry shape. You are not a hard-to-see object. You do not exist in their available information at all. On the driver's side, the left side, the blind spot is smaller but still extends a full car length alongside the cab. This is the zone that matters most for the left lane question. When you're sitting beside a semi in the left lane, level with the cab or slightly behind it, you are in or near that driver side blind spot. the driver does not know if you are there. And if they need to make a lane change, not because they're being careless, but because a merge is coming or debris has appeared ahead, they are making that change into a space where you may or may not be visible to them. CDL training in the United States teaches this blind spot geometry before a student ever pulls a loaded trailer. It is the first thing. Not how to back up, not how to manage the air brakes. The first thing is the blind spots, because the blind spots are where people die. Professional drivers manage this through mirror discipline, checking every 5 to 8 seconds, through movement and timing, through positioning that minimizes the time anyone spends in those zones. But they cannot manage it if you decide the left lane next to a semi is a comfortable place to cruise at 75 miles an hour for 10 minutes. The rule, if you can't see their mirrors, they can't see you, is posted on the back of virtually every commercial trailer on American roads. Most drivers read it, nod, and immediately pull into the blind spot anyway. This is not a character flaw. It's a knowledge gap, and that gap is exactly what this video is closing. Here's something that will surprise the majority of Americans watching this. In most states, it is literally illegal for trucks over a certain weight to operate in the left lane on a multi-lane highway. Not frowned upon, not discouraged. Illegal. The specifics vary by state. In California, vehicles over 10,000 pounds are restricted from the far left lane on freeways with 4 or more lanes. In Texas, trucks over 26,000 pounds operating on highways with 3 or more lanes must stay in the 2 rightmost lanes. In Ohio, commercial vehicles over a certain weight are prohibited from the left lane on interstates except to pass. Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Pennsylvania all have similar restrictions with varying weight thresholds and lane configurations. These laws exist because the stopping distance math demanded them. The federal guidelines that set the framework for interstate highway design in the 1950s and 60s made right lane preference for heavy vehicles a safety principle. Individual states translated that principle into law at different speeds and with different specifics, but the underlying logic everywhere is identical. A 40-ton vehicle traveling at highway speed in the leftmost lane, the lane where car traffic moves fastest, where speed differentials are highest, where passing maneuvers are most frequent, creates a collision geometry problem that the right lane eliminates. The practical result is that when you see a trucker staying in the right lane on an American interstate with the left lane wide open, that driver is not failing to notice the available space. They are complying with a law you probably didn't know applied to them, and in many cases, they are also complying with a company policy that monitors their lane position electronically and has financial consequences for violations. The frustration you feel watching them is a completely understandable reaction to a system whose logic was never explained to you. That's not your fault, but now you know. There's a device installed in most commercial trucks operating on American highways right now that almost no one outside the industry knows about. It's called a speed governor, and it does one thing: it puts a hard electronic ceiling on how fast the truck can go. Not a soft suggestion, a hard ceiling. The engine will not exceed it. The accelerator pedal, past a certain point, simply does not communicate with the engine anymore. Different carriers set their governors at different speeds. Smaller regional fleets might run at 65 or 68 miles per hour. Large national carriers, the ones with logos you recognize, typically set their governors between 62 and 68 mph for liability and fuel economy reasons. Some operate as low as 60. The legal speed limit on most American interstates is 65 to 75 miles per hour, sometimes 80 in states like Texas and Utah. Do the math. A truck governed at 65 miles per hour on a Texas interstate with a posted limit of 80 is legally traveling 15 miles per hour below the speed limit, and physically cannot go faster regardless of road conditions, traffic flow, or driver intent. When the left lane opens up, cars flowing at 75 or 80 miles per hour, that truck cannot enter that lane and match the speed of traffic already in it. Moving left while being 10 to 15 miles per hour slower than the vehicles approaching from behind creates a more dangerous situation than staying right. The driver knows this. The governor prevents the alternative. Here's the unintended consequence that nobody planned for when the governor became standard equipment. Before governors, a truck in a difficult situation could theoretically accelerate, push up to its mechanical maximum to close a gap, avoid a merge conflict, match traffic briefly in an emergency. Not ideal but possible. With a governor, that flexibility is gone. The truck is fixed at its ceiling speed regardless of what's happening around it. Right lane fixed speed, immovable relative to car traffic that is permitted to travel significantly faster. The policy designed to make trucks safer inadvertently locked the speed gap in place permanently, and permanently created the conditions for the frustration you've felt, the clips you've filmed, and the comment sections you've read. Let's talk about what actually happens when the system breaks down, when trucks end up in the wrong lane, at the wrong speed, at the wrong time. Because the crash data from those events is the reason every rule in this video exists. According to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, large truck crashes kill approximately 5,000 people in the United States every year. That is about 13 people every single day. Of those fatalities, roughly 71% are not the truck driver. They are the occupants of the other vehicles involved. The physics of a collision between a 40-ton truck and a 3,500-pound sedan do not negotiate. The sedan loses, every time, without exception. Lane change and overtaking incidents, trucks moving between lanes, trucks being struck during lane transitions. Trucks and cars occupying the same space during merge events represent a consistent and significant portion of that annual death toll. When the FMCSA analyzes the factors in those crashes, speed differential between vehicle classes comes up repeatedly. Trucks moving at speeds close to or above their governed maximum in lanes where car traffic is traveling faster. Cars cutting into gaps that look large from a sedan, but are dangerously small from the front of a 53-foot trailer. The geometry of disaster that right lane discipline was specifically designed to prevent. Here's the crash scenario that experienced truck drivers think about and civilians almost never do. You're in a car doing 75 miles an hour, following a semi at what feels like a safe distance, maybe 150 feet behind the trailer. That gap feels comfortable at your speed. You can see around the truck, you feel in control. But 150 feet at 75 miles per hour gives you about 1.4 seconds of reaction time. The truck needs roughly 525 feet to stop. You need 316 feet. If that truck's brakes lock up, if a tire blows out, if something falls off the vehicle ahead, if the driver makes an emergency stop, you have 1.4 seconds to process the situation and begin braking. In those 1.4 seconds, you're traveling 154 feet. You are already inside the truck's stopping distance before your foot has reached the brake pedal. This is not a hypothetical. This scenario plays out on American interstates every week. And the professional truck driver community knows it, thinks about it, and designs their lane behavior around it every mile they drive. Right lane discipline is not just about where the truck goes. It's about creating the maximum possible buffer between the truck and the closest vehicles, which are almost always behind it, in the same lane, closing at 10 to 15 miles per hour faster. Here's where the story gets genuinely strange, and where it proves beyond any reasonable argument that right lane discipline for heavy vehicles is not a cultural habit or a regulatory artifact. It is the correct answer to a physics problem. Over the past decade, multiple technology companies have been developing autonomous semi-trucks: Waymo Via, Aurora, Kodiak Robotics, Torque Robotics. These are programs with hundreds of millions of dollars behind them, teams of engineers from the best universities in the world. Access to more road data than any human driver will accumulate in a lifetime, and zero connection to trucking culture, trucking unions, or trucking tradition. They approach the question of how a heavy autonomous vehicle should behave on a highway as a pure engineering and machine learning problem. And what did they build into the behavior specifications for every single one of these autonomous trucks? Right lane as the default operating position. Speed differential buffers maintained against faster passenger car traffic. Left lane excursions permitted only in narrow, specific, well-defined scenarios. Passing a slow-moving vehicle, navigating a construction merge, responding to a specific road condition. Think about what that means. Engineers who have never driven a semi, who learned nothing from a CDL trainer, who had no trucking culture to inherit, who started from scratch with sensor data and physics modeling and machine learning. They arrived at the exact same conclusion that experienced professional truck drivers reached in the 1970s. Stay right, maintain your buffer. Don't go left unless you have to. The algorithm and the veteran driver are giving you the same instruction for the same reason from completely different directions. One learned it through a trainer's voice in a cab somewhere on I-80. The other calculated it through thousands of hours of test data on California highways. The answer is identical. The physics didn't change. The correct response to those physics didn't change either. The only thing that changed is how we got there. And the irony that professional drivers find darkly funny when they hear about it is this. The autonomous trucks that will eventually replace them will also sit in the right lane on wide-open interstates. They will also appear to be blocking the left lane when the left lane is wide open, and someone somewhere will film it on their dash cam, and the comment section will write itself, "Move over." You're blocking traffic, and the autonomous truck will continue exactly what it's doing because the physics don't care about the comment section. Next time you're on the highway I-95 up the East Coast, I-10 across the South, I-80 cutting through the middle of the country, and there's a semi in front of you in the right lane doing 63 miles an hour with the left lane wide open. Here's what I want you to remember. That driver has been doing this on average for over 20 years. They got up at 3 a.m. this morning. They pre-tripped their vehicle in a dark parking lot in the cold. They've driven 400 miles already. They know exactly where their blind spots are. They know exactly how far it takes them to stop. They know their governor's ceiling. They know the state laws for every state on their route. They know what happens to cars that get caught in the wrong place when something goes wrong at highway speed. And they are sitting in the right lane, at a consistent speed, in a predictable position, because that is the safest possible place for 40 tons of freight to be on an American highway. Not the most convenient place from your point of view, the safest place. For them, for you, for the family in the minivan 3 cars behind you that you haven't even thought about. The next time you feel that flash of frustration, that impulse to grab your phone and film it, try this instead. Create a little more following distance. Give the truck more space. Stay out of the blind spot zones on the sides. And remember that 525-foot stopping distance number, because that number is doing more to keep you alive on American interstates than any safety feature your car has ever been sold with. The trucks are going to keep staying right. The physics are going to keep being the physics. The only variable in this equation that you actually control is whether or not you understand why. Now you do. If this changed how you think about what you see on the highway, subscribe. Every video on this channel takes something you drive past every single day and shows you what's actually happening. There's a lot more on American roads that most people have completely wrong. We're going to get to all of it.